Hello and welcome everyone to Success from the Soul with Isha Patel. And today on the show, we have Julian Pace, the founder of Happiness Co. Julian has an incredible story to share with us today. So please welcome and introduce yourself.
Good evening. Thank you so very much for having me. Always nice to be with great like-minded people on a Tuesday night.
This is very true. So Julian, I'd like to start by just getting to know a little bit about what is Happiness Co.
Yeah, great question. I get a lot, obviously. Happiness Co. works in the preemptive mental health space. So around people's happiness, very simply, choices towards the person that you want to be or choices away. So think about everything you do in your life, including the thoughts that you have, the choices that you make. Every single person is met with a crossroad of towards the person they want to be or away. So we teach the tools, and no one wakes up in the morning and says they want to go through their daily dose of misery or pain today. But sadly, so many people go through pain and hard times, and we just say, well, if we get better tools, then hopefully we can, cause less damage along the way. And I always say, think about it being a traffic light system. Green, orange, and red. Red being crisis management, orange being really kind of prevention-based, and then green being really preventative. So really working on the things that you need to work on before maybe you go through some trauma.
Amazing. And tell me, what was the inspiration behind you starting this company?
Yeah, so I think our reasons are really powerful when we're trying to, run successful businesses. And mine stem from my own story. And I say to everybody, you've got your own story. Every single person listening to this right now has their own story. And some are filled with pleasure and happiness, and some are filled with pain and heartbreak. And my particular story was filled with a lot of heartbreak and a lot of pain early. And I lost my father to suicide on my 21st birthday, and that really changed the way I saw the world, changed the way I saw people, but more importantly, it changed the way I saw myself. And the reason why, it's because me and him had a fight not too long before he died, and then you live with regret and you live with shame, and you start to tell yourself a new story. So we always tell ourselves stories, right? And my story, became that my dad's dead because of what I said. And in a second, you believe that you're a monster. And when you have so much shame and you believe that you're a monster and that becomes your story, you think about what you don't deserve. You don't deserve love, compassion, empathy. So I pushed away all the people that were in my life that I loved, my family, my mum, my brothers, my sisters. And we all know the saying, misery loves company. And I turned to, I guess, other sad, lonely, and broken people to support myself in my pain. And then I justified my terrible behavior. And then I made a lot of mistakes along the way. And that's why I always talk about choices towards or away, because I made so many choices away from the young man I wanted to be after losing my dad. And I blamed him for so much, but I also blame myself. And that's, I guess, a bit of the context of how Happiness Co. started, because, I did lose my way, and I did lose it for a long time, for 5 years or so, including drugs and alcohol and just really a destructive path. And then I decided to rebuild it. And I guess I'm 32 years old now. And over the last 7 years, I've been, working as a coach, speaker, trainer. And then about 2.5 years ago, I opened Happiness Co. with the methodology, which is you are more than your problems and you're bigger than your mistakes. And that was kind of the real theme of what I wanted to go with. Because as you would imagine, in the work that you do, so many people hold on to the problems I had yesterday.
Yeah, 100%. And what was that turning point for you between, the 5 years of shit that you went through and then actually deciding that you wanted to change that?
Yeah, there's probably a couple of profound things. I just remember particularly having an argument with my mum, and I just saw, when you see pain in another's eyes, I just saw this heartbreak in my mum's eyes that I was causing her. And I could see that I was breaking her heart, and she had, I guess, a sense of hopelessness of not being able to change the outcome for me. And I think it's always hard for a mum and a son. But also, I don't talk about this a lot online, but I do talk about a lot on stage and a lot in our programs. I had a bunch of attempts in my own life. And for me, 98% of people that attempt to take their own life ultimately say the same thing, right? Which is they didn't want to actually die, they just wanted the pain to stop. And I just wanted the pain to go away. And my heart was so broken, and I just felt I lived in despair and hopelessness for a long period of time. And despair being, it's never going to get better, and hopelessness, which is there's no point to go on. And when you start to believe these stories that you tell yourself, and as I said, live in shame and you push away the people that you care about, you can make some really terrible choices. But I profoundly remember really wanting to live, but feeling I had no choice. And then I guess when I got a second chance at it, I worked really hard, and it wasn't easy. I fell over many times trying to get back to finding happiness again. But I guess I really worked on my belief system that I was worth fighting for. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. And did you have help along the way with that?
It was all non-clinical. So I guess very much around the work that I guess yourself and I do, around really building a better relationship with myself, energy work, mindset, emotions, and really changing the story, changing the meaning about what happened in my life. And rather than playing that victim, really thinking about, well, how could I make it my legacy? How could I really turn my pain into my purpose and my sadness into my strength? And ultimately, they are an energy thing. You know, like for me, I was putting so much time and energy and attention into feeling miserable. And, you know, what you think about, you become, right? You know this. So I'm sitting there just thinking about the same thing all day long. And no wonder I was so sad and miserable. And I was at such a low vibration in my life, is because that's all I fed my mind. And I say this to people all the time. What you feed your mind is way more important than what you feed your mouth. Because, yeah, nutrition's important, but this navigates so much of your choice.
Yeah, beautiful. And so let's fast forward now to where you are in your life. Tell us about this booming movement that you've got going on.
Yeah, so, and we do call it a movement because it is. And we have a tagline, which is making the world a happier place by inspiring the people in it. And just before, when you and I were offline, I was talking about, happiness being fulfillment, which is how you feel about yourself. Like, you've probably met some people that have a lot of money that are miserable. You've probably met some people that wanted that job and now spend no time with their family. You've probably met that really beautiful girl that's super insecure, that really handsome guy that's really insecure. So Happiness Co is really about allowing people the tools and the awareness to build fulfillment in their life, which is that fundamental relationship with themselves. So Happiness Co goes around, and now we've worked with about 50,000 people in 10 countries. We've worked with some of the biggest corporates in Australia. We work with some of incredible sporting teams, and we work with a whole bunch of media personalities around mindset, emotion, strategy. And it's incredible what you can do with a story, because the reason that Happiness Co has been so successful is based around my ability to be vulnerable. Mm-hmm. Based around my ability to share what I've been through and showing how you can overcome it. So it wasn't just me just reading it from a book and then trying to tell you. It was me really living the experiences and using them experiences to make my own life better, and then using them same tools and strategies to now take these into workplaces all around Australia, which has been kind of cool.
Amazing. And what are some of the biggest obstacles you've come across in actually building this as a business?
Yeah. Well, I think the first obstacle is when you call your company Happiness Co.
Why is that an obstacle?
Well, I value the word happiness so much, but I feel like it was if you called your company Love Co.
Right.
A lot of people would be like, we all look for love and happiness, right? You get it. But I think a lot of people can think happiness is like that destination that we kind of never get to. And it's that feel-good story that only some people create. And so some of the frustrations that came up early for me personally were trying to redefine what happiness meant to people, trying to redefine how you can create it in yourself. And then lots of companies, as you would imagine in terms of corporate world, really are looking for key strategic outcomes. Mm-hmm. Happiness is not one of them. Profitability is, engagement is, return on investment is. But to me, I always ask people this, well, is success the key to happiness, or is happiness the key to success? And, you think about your own life. When you're happy, you make better choices. When you're happy, you make other people better. When you're happy, you're a better communicator. So that was really hard early doors. We're 2.5 years old now, and so we're not even that old. And we still met with these same kind of challenges along the way. But I think that having a real, whatever it takes mentality to it, and working on how to navigate your way through difficult conversations about people that may not understand the importance of happiness to people. And people, you get this, people fundamentally value it. Like, they may not believe they can obtain it or they can find it or create it, but they value it. Like, it's something, if they could have, if there was a pill to make you happy, you would take it. And we're just trying to show people there's no pill to take to make you happy. but hard work always works. Just like if you want a great body, you're going to do a lot of push-ups for it, right? Same thing with happiness. If you want happiness, you're going to work hard for it. And we're really starting to change that narrative now.
Right. I'm having a little internal giggle with myself here because I'm imagining in my head. So I've come from a background of engineering and I've been in corporate as well. And I can just picture you have all your KPIs listed, and at the top of that page, you've got rate on a scale of 1 to 5, your happiness factor when you walk in. Can you imagine how different, companies would be if that was actually one of your KPIs?
Yeah, but you look at any leading company in the world, you talk about, the Googles and the Apples of the world and the Mind Valleys and some people that have happiness down pat. The reason they win the top culture awards around the world and why people talk about their organizations is because they really do value their people's happiness. And do you know why happiness is so hard to get right in people's lives? Because happiness is different to every single person on the planet.
So true.
So from an organization's perspective, you truly have to be so engaged with every single person in your workplace, because what works for you doesn't work for someone else. So you have to be such an inclusive workforce culturally, in terms of what culture people want, their beliefs, their outlooks, their rules, everything that people do, right? It's so fundamentally different, but you have to have such a care factor to that. Mm-hmm. And I think companies that try and act like they care about their people's happiness and don't, they always get found out.
Right. Well, you end up with a bunch of unhappy employees, and unhappy employees either don't work, they quit, they're not productive, right? And you just end up with just a place that nobody wants to be. And if people don't want to be in their workplace, what kind of results are you going to get from, what they produce? I can't imagine it's very good.
Well, workplaces, actually, do you mind if I flick this light on? I feel like I'm getting a bit dark over here.
Yeah, go nuts. There's a nice view out the back there as well.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate. I live in a really beautiful area of Perth, and just over here to my left is the most beautiful view of the Swan River. So yeah. I'm very grateful that every morning I get to wake up and see that, because it does. Physical environments matter to your mental health, right? Your clarity. But we were just saying this before about people. Think about, work's no different to your relationships you have with your partner or your friends. When we feel better, we feel appreciated, we feel happy, we're just better people. And you've heard that expression, hurt people, hurt people. When we're hurting in our life, we hurt people that we care about. When we're hurting in our workplace and we don't feel appreciated and valued, we spend too much time in the lunchroom bitching. We spend too much time going to the toilet. We spend too much time procrastinating on our emails. Yeah. And I say to people all the time, a great way to see an unhappy workforce is movement over progress. Just being busy is not progress. Progress is with meaning, with intent. And when people have a real buy-in to the work that they do. And doesn't mean that the work's always fun. It doesn't mean the work's always enjoyable. It just means there's a real buy-in to why they're doing it.
Amazing. I would actually love to dive into a little bit of some of the tools that you offer these workplaces and how you're actually creating these shifts for people. Yeah.
Well, firstly, as I mentioned before, there's two things that we really focus on with people. Mm-hmm. We talk about decision making, and then we talk about story and emotion. The story that you tell yourself and the emotions that you feel. So for an example, and this is really practical, right? And you need to keep it really simple when you go to the workplace. You really don't have the time. And how you said that you do live events, you do coaching, and people are opting in to come see you. Mm-hmm. Remember, we're going in cold. We're going into these workplaces when their organizations are buying our training, and they're like, who's these happiness people, right? So you got to keep it super simple, but super clear for them. So storytelling and emotion. So an example would be, my story is that no one likes me in the workplace, right? And then the emotion would be, I feel unworthy. Imagine what kind of choices that you make when you have that story and you feel that way. Mm-hmm. You become a people pleaser. You may make bad choices. You may make mistakes. You may end up becoming caught up in workplace bullying. That's what we really work on. It's like, well, what story are you telling yourself? And have you ever heard of a conspiracy theory before?
Plenty in my space.
Plenty, right? So I say people are no different to a conspiracy theory. It's like conspiracy thinking, which is people make up stories that they lack facts in. So I could make up a story about my life that actually lacks facts, which is one of my old stories used to be, my dad killed himself because of me. That story lacked actual fact. It was my insecurities that made that story up, right? Mm-hmm. It's my meaning that I attached to that moment that made me believe that was true. But the facts were, it had nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with him. the facts were my dad was in pain and he made a choice to end his life, but I took that meaning and made it my own.
Mm-hmm.
So even in relationships, and you see this happen all the time in personal relationships, it's like, I think my partner's angry at me and it's not even angry. She's just upset about something that happened that day at work, and you believe it's about you and we assume it's about us. So we are very good at telling ourselves stories that link deeply to our emotions. And emotions have the power to create or the power to destroy every moment in your life. So if you're using emotion to destroy your life, then that's exactly what will happen. So we use what we call emotional set points. And when I say emotional set points, we use storytelling to allow other people to understand content. So we don't provide content to a workplace in terms of this is, appendix 1, blah, blah, blah. We use storytelling and then add content in.
Mm-hmm. Can you just give me like an example? Talk me through, just what I would expect to see at one of your workshops.
Yeah, so one of the greatest things that we teach is what we call the authenticity wheel.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think a lot of fulfillment comes from showing up and being authentic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of my favorite sayings, and we've got 9 employees at Happiness Co, 15 coaches and 250 volunteers. One of the big things I harp on about all the time is nobody cares about how much you know until they know how much you care. Like, we all want to know stuff, right? And we all want to be the leaders in our space. But really, all people truly care about is, well, are you the right person for me? Like, are you going to help me with my challenges, my problems, my pain? So what we talk about is, well, how can you be the most authentic version of yourself to make this the end game, which is the end game is live the way you want to be remembered. And imagine that concept, right? I talk about living by basic principles. One of the basic principles I choose to live by is living the way you want to be remembered. So we take that example, we put it into corporate and say, well, if today was the last night that you went to bed, I wonder how you would want to be remembered. And are then you making choices that link to that? Because quite often you'll find that people aren't. So quite often people are making choices to fit in, to be validated, to feel significant. And when that really comes down to it, which is, are you truly being the authentic person that you want to be? And sometimes people don't even know what it is, so we train it. But we talk about perception, which is how people see you. Persona, which is how you want to be seen. And you get this, especially in workplaces. Mm-hmm. No one wakes up in the morning and wants to be an arsehole, right? Maybe some people do, but majority of people don't.
Right.
But how is it, and when we go to workplaces, people are like, oh, that person's an arsehole? Because the perception is, oh, Jules is an arsehole, but maybe it's just the way I'm coming across, but I actually don't want to be seen as an arsehole. When I go into these big corporate companies, I just tell people, I was like, do you know you're seen as an arsehole? And they're deeply taken back by it because they're like, I don't want to be seen as an arsehole. I'm a dad with 2 kids and a wife, or I'm a wife with some kids and a husband. Like, people don't want to be seen as an arsehole, but sometimes the choices that we make, because we're so unaware, make us perceived a certain way. So persona is really understanding how you want to be seen, whatever that looks like to you: kind, loving, caring, compassionate. Think about you, how people perceive you right now as a person. Then think about how you'd like to be seen. And a true authentic person tries to make sure they match up. Mm-hmm. Because if you want to be seen as loving and you're not, then there's a mismatch there, right? And maybe it's what your behavior is or your choices that you're making. But then we truly talk about the core of a person, right? Which is your values and what it means to be authentic for you. So this, in the world of PD is incredible. But when you take that into a workplace and you can understand that people are not perceived the way they want to be perceived, that's a real trigger for them, which is like, wow, I didn't even know I was seen like that. Because we really value our family and our friends' opinions of us, which is important. But it also matters what our, a larger audience and other stakeholders, because it matters to us. We all want to be loved, we all want to be accepted, and we all want to be appreciated. So that's one of the great things that we train inside our workplaces, which how can we build more authentic leaders?
Beautiful. I'm thinking about this just purely from my perspective now of where I'm seeing this. I don't think personally I spend a lot of time thinking about how other people view me, right? Because for me, I'm so busy just doing what I'm doing, and I'm very clear on what it is that I'm here to offer the world, that I just wake up every day and I'm excited to do that, and this is what I do, you know. So I don't think I really sit there and think to myself, oh, how are people seeing me, and is that matching up with how I want to be seen? Because I'm not sure I've even ever stopped to think about how I want to be seen, because I just don't think it matters to me. You know, I'm like, people are going to see me how they see me, and that's how it is. I'm curious as to, like, in the workplace, perhaps there's a different view on that, or maybe, like, I'm purely speculating here now. Do people actually care that much about what other people think? I mean, I don't as much, you know. I'm curious, as, like, maybe that's not true for others.
You know, I've surveyed over 15,000 people in our programs collectively across Australia and the world. And one of the big things that they believe causes unhappiness is data, right? Is rejection.
Yep.
So being viewed, it comes in different ways, right? But no one wants to feel like they're not good enough. So I would call you a 5%er. You live in the 5% space, which is similar to me, which is, you know what, some people are gonna love me, some people are gonna hate me, but ultimately all that really matters is, do I like me? But that's the key, right? Do you like you is really that fulfillment part I mentioned before. But a lot of people don't have that courage to be able to truly have a belief system that allows them to be themselves, even when they have no friends. And I mean that. So people ask me a lot about gender equality. And I'm like, I'm all for gender equality. I love it. I think everyone should be equal, right? But if you're going to have a belief system, you have to be willing to stand by it and have no friends. Mm-hmm. Because that's what happens with people, right? I see this with people, like, they want to believe in what is right, but then they go against it because they want to be liked. Mm-hmm. And I just truly believe that so many people spend so much time trying to impress people they don't know or don't really even like, to have things that they don't really need to go on living a life they don't enjoy. Like, if you think about the average person, depression, anxiety, unhappiness is at record highs in Australia. Suicide is at record highs for men under the age of 45. Youth suicides at record highs in the last 10 years. People are generally unhappy. And there's a bunch of factors that go into it, but one being connection, one being the fear of judgment, and people do struggle with it. So where you sit, it's a really beautiful view. It's a way that you see the world, which is, I'm just so focused on me, and that's incredible. And if we could get more people across the line to know that that's where that dangerous level of freedom comes from. And people always ask me, how have you failed so many times? Because, you know, I've failed a lot in my life, and I've also failed a lot in Happiness Co. But I just say to people, I'm okay to fail because I don't really care what you think about my failure, if that makes sense. Because people are so scared to fail, not because of failing. They're scared to fail because if I fail, then what will you think?
Right. Gotcha. Yeah.
So if Happiness Co went, you know, for instance, I've done such great work at Happiness Co, right, in this last 2.5 years, but say Happiness Co was to go under tomorrow, and for whatever reason I wouldn't be able to afford to pay the staff, I'm actually more scared about people thinking I'm a failure than what I had done. And that's what people get caught up in, mm-hmm. which is, I'm worried about what people are going to think of my success and my failure rather than what I believe I've done in my life.
So how do you then build that resilience? Because that part of it I can relate to. You know, I've definitely had many failures in my life, and also in the past, you know, I guess being afraid to start something because there's been such a high risk of failure that I've gone, oh, I don't know if I can do that. And so I would love to know how you have built that resilience in yourself to just keep going no matter what.
Yeah, and honestly, I call it the highlights reel or the blooper reel. You think about people's lives, they always kind of, you know, fears are, you know, you love emotion, but love and fear are two dominant emotions that we have in our life, right? Most people play that blooper reel, which is led from fear. And I just try and play my highlights reel, which is, you know, in every moment of my life. And, you know, my problems are different now to what they were 2 years ago. My problems are different now to what they were 5 years ago. You know, my staff wages are different to what they were 2 years ago. So your problems are always changing. But I always try and look for my problems from a sense of what would love do and what would love say. And I know that sounds cliche and very Oprah, but to me, it allows me to get out of my head into my heart. It allows me to make sure I'm trying to make decisions that are congruent to the person I'm trying to be and the person I want to be and the leader I want to be and the, you know, the man I want to be. And they are what I call the difference between peak performance and achievement and fulfillment, which is what we call personal performance. So one of the big things that we teach at Happiness Co is personal performance. Mm-hmm. So think about anything that's being successful. Sporting teams, companies, people that you know of, right? They are very good at achieving success because that's why we know them, right? But how many times do you hear stories of people being successful and being sad? So personal performance matters. So your question was, how do I manage it? Well, I make sure I really look at how I measure personal performance. So things like self-esteem, things like self-respect, things like authenticity, things like living for my values, things like meaningful connection. And when I say things like this, I score them out of 1 to 10. Like, it's a real simple tool, right? Every Friday, I'll just score myself. It's like, well, how much self-respect do I reckon I had for myself this week? And, you know, in life, we get what we tolerate. And if you allow people to treat you poorly, it's exactly what you get. So I assess these things. Like, do I believe that I'm a better man today than I was yesterday? And do I believe I can be a better man tomorrow than I was today? And it's not about being perfect, but it is about making sure you're assessing your behavior. And you know how, like, most of our behavior is on autopilot? Like, we don't really think about it. I always say to people, get to, have to. And when you if I was to ask you this question, when you have to do something, what does it become?
Well, it's obligation, and that's no fun.
Yeah. It becomes a chore, right?
Yeah.
It becomes a chore when I have to take my kids to school. I have to go to work. And most people make the things that matter to them most a chore. Like, when we first meet someone, it's called the honeymoon period, and we put all this time and attention into making sure that they choose us and vice versa. And then it falls apart, or it's not the same as it once was, because we change our level of attention, which is I get to go to work in the morning. And so I guess, in a long-winded answer to your question, I always remind myself that I get to, not have to. Like Jules. And then I always say, don't ask for a big life and complain to the referee. Like, I demanded my life to be a happy one. Like, after I went through all that stuff, I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go all in on purpose and passion and making a difference in people's lives. But then I also had a no complaining or a no excuse policy, which is, you can't ask to build a successful movement and then complain about some of the hardships that go into it.
I love that. I love that so much. Totally. 100%. Yes.
You get, think about having 9 employees. Like, that comes with challenges, right?
I bet. Yeah.
That's their lives, their families, their money, their workforce. And, like, I love my guys and they love me. It's really, we have a great team, but it does add a level of complexity to what you do. But don't complain. Don't try and build Happiness Co as a global movement and complain about your staff having challenges, because that just contradicts what you're trying to do. Like, where you put your attention and your energy is so important. So I'm so grateful I get to deal with my staff challenges. I'm so grateful I have that conflict. I'm so grateful that they annoy me. I'm so grateful that I get frustrated. Because if you take these things for granted, you forget your humble beginnings.
Yeah. Hit the nail on the head. I love that so much. Gratitude is such a big part in my life. It's something I do every day, every morning. Like, I try not to leave the house until I've done my 3 things that I'm grateful for, and it's a game changer. And I love your perspective on that, where it's like, even if it's something that's challenging, it's something you get to do, because the fact that you have staff, the fact that you have this business, the fact that you have this movement, it sounds like to me you're just embracing it by the balls and just running with it. And even when all the little things are coming up, it's like, then it's just finding a way to resolve that instead of sitting there complaining about it, which is amazing. I can see why, with that mindset, you would have a very successful company.
Yeah, but also, and that's about how you embody that in your people too.
Mm-hmm.
Because leadership is by your actions, not just a word. So it's how you make sure that you live by the things that you say, right? But you talk about gratitude around life. Like, my life now is busier than it ever has been. Like, my travel, my tours, I spend less time at home than I would like to, and I'm pulled in many different directions. I've got different businesses now. Happiness Coach is one of them. So I've got different opportunities popping up left, right, and center. And I get to do these things. But the reason I mention it is because when you have challenges, most people, when they are uncertain, stop. True? Or they go backwards, or they go and ask advice from other people that aren't doing the things they want to do. So
can I just add in there, Phil, because my audience are very sometimes in that spiritual shadow of, like, a challenge comes up and they're like, oh, maybe I'm not meant to be doing that, which I think is rubbish, FYI.
but sometimes it's like, well, is that something like, is that my intuition saying this is wrong, or is it my fear saying don't try? And a spiritual shadow is like people just coming up with reasons not to try.
Yeah.
Or reasons not to put themselves out their comfort zone. But when you look at it, is like, I just, think about when I have a lot of meetings and I have a lot of sessions, and like this next kind of 5 days, I'm like back till like Tuesday next week. But I share this with you is because once upon a time, I run 11 workshops and no one rocked up.
Mm-hmm.
When I first started this work, I run 11 live events and not one person showed up.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it profoundly, and I'll never forget it because, it was hard, it was difficult, it was challenging, and it really challenges your resolve. Like, you talk about spiritual shadows.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe this work's not for me. Maybe I don't have any value to offer, but that's not actually the truth. It was because I wasn't being resourceful enough. I wasn't tapping into the right tools and the assets and the mindset to be able to make me win in that space. And then, 4 people rocked up, and then 10 people rocked up, and then 20. Now, sometimes I'm fortunate enough to have 1,000 people in the audience. But the reason I share it is when I get really busy, I'm like, once upon a time, no one used to pick me. And now I'm lucky enough that hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people pick myself and pick Happiness Co. And for that, I'm always be grateful, because I'm only successful in my own right because you said yes to me. If you think about it, like you had to say yes to me to make me the man I am today. So I'm so grateful that I'm even with you right now, even on this call. Like once upon a time, I didn't have these opportunities, and now I do. So I'm never going to take them for granted. And I don't know how long I've got left, and I don't know how long I've got this like life in me, this song in me, this dance in me. But what I do know is that I'll make the most of it while I'm here.
That's amazing. It's so inspirational. Tell us about one of your biggest blunders of your business, where like you wanted to throw in the towel and just like walk away.
Oh, well, I try and talked about early doors with the no one showing up. That was really hard when you have yourself. But there was probably a time, 2.5 years in now, and there was probably a time about a year ago, a bit over a year ago, when I was burnt by a few people, and I'm just a generally trusting person, and there's probably some things that I neglected, and I maybe had blind or reckless passion, but it really cost me. It cost me financially. It cost me emotionally. But you can always make more money, right? But it did hurt me financially. But the damage was really internal stuff. Like it was the break in trust. The feel that you put so much good into the world, or so much good into a particular individual, and you have a real sense of love for that relationship, and your trust can be betrayed. And I'm really open about that. And that was one of my biggest struggles in the last kind of 3 years in business, because trust is hard to gauge, and it's really one of them things I never want to give up on, which is I never want to stop seeing the best in people, because it's one of my best qualities. But it's also about making sure that you're really aware of the choices that you make too. And I take full responsibility and ownership about the choices I've made along the way. But that was a really hard one. And I'm talking substantial amount of money. And I'm also talking about, going to bed at night after making these choices, feeling like I've let my whole team down. How am I going to make sure I make payroll? That kind of stuff, these kind of thoughts and demons that you have popping up, and you have yourself to blame when you look at yourself in the mirror, because you're like, I still made these choices. I still allow myself to fall into the trap, and it was a trap, but I still, whatever reason, wasn't aware enough. I didn't have the right mentors or the support infrastructure around me. But your greatest lessons come from your greatest setbacks. And you know what? I overcame that, but I became bigger and better and stronger in more ways than I ever thought possible. And what I mean by that is I've been through so much emotionally as a young man, as a person in my life. But it was my first real big challenge in business, when it's like, wow, it's like it hurts. And like, I think about when my dad died and broke my heart. It was like a different kind of pain, but it was in my heart. It was like, I feel such sadness because of this moment, but I can't give up. And you can't let that moment define the person that you become. So that was probably the biggest challenge in the last 2.5 years.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing, just so openly, because, the people that are watching this, a lot of them are starting entrepreneurs, and some of them are going through the struggle. And it's something I totally relate to. Because when you talked about the 11 workshops. Yeah, I ran my Friday night meditation classes for 6 months every Friday night, and like crickets, man, crickets, like, so I'm with you, like totally get it, we've just had a comment, by the way. You both are blowing my mind. Thank you to our viewers. Yeah, so, to the people that are watching this and listening to your story and who are in those earlier stages of entrepreneurship, please share a message with those people.
I always just say that wake up every day and work harder on yourself than anything else. Because if you want to be successful in this game, you've got to work on who you are. Because the landscape changes, the environment changes, the people around you change. The things that people say to you will change. People will go back on their promises. And the biggest tip I can give people is get so very okay with rejection. We actually don't even fear no. It's not no that we fear. Think about when you're growing up and you ask your parents for an ice cream. No, kind of out like no. We're familiar with no. But why we struggle with rejection is the reason why. Like we fear rejection because the why that we attach. And who creates the why? Us. We take rejection so personally. And entrepreneurs take it like when someone says no to us or no to you, that it's somehow a reflection on the person that you are. It's not. It's a lesson. So every time I get a no, and I get more no's than most people think, right? People only see my yeses. People see us get the Optus Stadium deal. People see us get all these crazy deals. People see all the amazing things that Happiness Co does. But I'm never shy to never mislead people that we get so many no's too. But we work so hard to get the yeses. So we get more no's than we get yes. So imagine how hard we have to work for the yeses. Mm-hmm. So for any entrepreneur watching this right now, just be okay with the no's. And sometimes the no's are the best things that ever happened to you. And I always use this as an example with my beautiful partner. Well, imagine how many girls said no to me when I asked them out in my last, 15 years. Just think about that as a concept. Lots. And
really? Pretty face like yours?
But also think about the ones that said yes. So I think about when I was like 24 years old, 25 years old, and I was in a relationship that was really toxic, right? Really toxic. But she said yes. So sometimes when we get the yeses, they aren't actually what we need or what we want. We just want the yes, so it builds our self-esteem. But do you know what the truth is? Yeses and no's don't build your self-esteem. The character that you choose to be builds your self-esteem. How you conduct yourself, how you show up every day. As you said, waking up with gratitude. And, we talked about authenticity before. I always say authenticity is this: doing the things that you said you'd do when no one's watching. So for all the entrepreneurs out there right now that are trying to be something and do something in the world, I applaud you and I celebrate that. But remember, it's what you do behind closed doors that will make you a great entrepreneur. It is how, you go, as you said, go through them meditation Fridays and no one rocks up, and how you find the confidence and the resolve to keep going. These things are, I think, what makes great entrepreneurs.
Right. I totally agree. I mean, it's all those little actions. And with the Friday nights, I'll tell you what I did. When nobody rocked up, I meditated anyway, because I believed in my practice so much that even when no one else was there, I would just sit there and I would put my music on and I would light my candles and I would meditate, knowing that one day somebody would join me. And I'm sure you can relate to this as well, Julian, where sometimes you feel like, you're about to give up on something, and then there's a turning point. Have you experienced that? It's like you almost throw in the towel. So for me, it was Friday night meditation. I'd be running it 6 months. I'd be getting sometimes no one, sometimes one or two people. And I actually just put out to the universe and I said, if this is what I'm supposed to be doing, like something has got to shift. And then the next week, I don't know what shifted. I think what it actually was perhaps like a surrendering is what happened, right? Because then like 10 people came. I never had 10 people. I didn't know where to put them all, right? I'm wondering if you actually have a similar experience like that where, you've almost given up. It's like that picture with, the guy with the pickaxe in the cave, and he's like almost at the jewels, and then he walks away and the next guy comes in and gets it. Do you have something like that?
Yeah, well, success is always, think about millimeters away, right? You think about goal. You're millimeters away from the perfect shot or the worst shot. Like, that is success in entrepreneurship, right? You're so close to success, but you can also be so very far. Mm-hmm. And I've got many stories about times when I never thought it was going to work. Only a year and a bit ago, I had 2 employees, and now I've got 9. And I always kind of wondered, how am I ever going to be able to grow this business and pay all these people? and how am I going to make enough cash flow to, but I think the key is I was asking all the wrong questions. It's like, how am I going to, like, it's like a part of despair. It's like, you know, nearly a victimhood. Like, how am I going to do it? Rather than living in a sense of abundance. And that's been a big shift for me in my life around running a business, because I feel like I really did master the game of trying to run my own life. Like, you know, think about getting my own life in order. I'm really good at that. But, you know, doesn't mean that you're a great business owner either, right? Because you can be really good at what you do, and then you can get into business and you're like, wow, I'm terrible at running a business. So I've really learned how to be a good business owner too, and a good entrepreneur. And that was something that didn't come naturally to me. So for anyone watching this right now that may be watching me talking and then looking at the success of Happiness Co., I was and started as a terrible business owner. And I'm still not a perfect one, and I'm still not great. But what I'm great at is my craft. And that's a speaker, coach, trainer, right? And that's my best in world. But the thing is, I still put so much time and attention and try and copy and paste my methodology, my mindset to being a better business owner. And it takes time and it's hard. But you know what? I get such a sense of reward because it's on my terms. It's about people. And when you have a sense of like trying to make someone else's life better, and for all the entrepreneurs watching this right now, always remember what you're doing it for and who you're trying to do it for. And never to make it about you, make it about people. And I always think when I close my eyes, hun, and I kind of manifest feeling good. So for me, it's like to manifest feeling good. People always ask me, Jules, do you believe in manifestation? I'm like, yeah, I believe in one manifestation though. Not money, not things. I believe in one manifestation, which is feeling good. Because when I feel good, and you've probably experienced this in your own life, I don't get complicated with all the other stuff. I'm just like, I want to manifest feeling good, because I know when I wake up and I feel good, I'm ultimately unstoppable. And when I wake up and I feel average and I'm tired and I'm lethargic and, you know, my energy levels are off, everything seems more difficult. So for everyone listening, manifest feeling good. Work on feeling good. Work on feeling inspired, feeling, you know, powerful. And one of the best ways to do that is to remind yourself who you're doing it for.
Beautiful.
Because about all your people watching, right? They're trying to help people.
Yeah, they're all trying to get out there and do their thing, and then of course everyone's stuff gets in the way. Actually, I'm curious. Have you ever hired mentors or business coaches to help you?
Yeah, I've got some of the best, honestly. I've got some of the best people around me. If you wanted me to tell you the one thing that was, I believe, held me in good stead about my success, it is the people I have around me. Not just the people that I have that are my mentors, but also the people that I have in my company. They are good people. And authentic people don't work with inauthentic people. I promise you that. Honest people do not work with dishonest people. And my mentors have been such a guide for me. But you know how I mentioned I've got, 9 employees? 9 employees don't work for me. I work for 9 employees. I've got 15 coaches. 15 coaches don't work for me. I work for 15 coaches. So that's, I guess, the philosophy that my mentors have taught me along the way as well, which is give more than you take. And life is never about what you get. It's always about what you give. And that is mentorship. That is wisdom that I have absorbed over the years. And yeah, mentors change. I've got different mentors now that I did 5 years ago, and I've still got some that are the same. But as you evolve, your mentors are involved, right? Some of my mentors that I have early doors, they recognize this and they're fine with it. I've become more successful than them when they first worked with me. Like it's like, Luke Skywalker becoming more powerful than Yoda, right? And, that's with all due respect for my mentors along the way. But I think about that with my people. If my people became more successful in what they did than I did, I'd be so very grateful that I was part of their life along the way. And real winners want to see other people win.
Do you think it's possible to go on this journey without a coach or mentor?
I think it is, but I think that, I think I'm a big tennis fan. Like, I love Roger Federer, right? And then Roger Federer was so good at his game for so long that he fired all his coaches, right? So you can make success happen without coaches, but the moral of the story is at the back end of his career, he hired coaches again. It's you make less mistakes with great coaches. You learn more with great coaches and great mentors. And I'd say, what's the point of going alone anyway? If you didn't have people to, sharpen your axe on. And I love that they challenge me. I also love that they call me on my bullshit. I also love that they they make me think about things differently. And that's a craft in itself. If you talk about being a better person, how you manage your mentors too, like how you keep yourself in check and aligned to the person that you want to be. And also one of my greatest mentors told me 2.5 years ago when I was telling him about Happiness Co, he goes, mate, I respect you, but Happiness Co is going to go broke.
Wow.
And that's what he said to me. And I really respect this, man. I was really deeply offended by it. He goes,
Yeah, I bet.
He goes, keep doing your speaking thing. You're making good money. You're traveling. You're getting paid. You stay on stage and you get paid good money for that. Keep doing that. And I said, no, but I don't want to just do that. I want to fundamentally make the world different. And one of the things I always said to myself, and for everyone listening, really have an end goal. See what your end goal is. And my end goal is something that I may not even be alive to see, which is making the world a happier place with, like, massive reductions on unhappiness and depression, anxiety. And maybe, we completely get rid of suicide completely. And maybe I'll never be alive for that, but I still have ambitions to make it possible. But I kind of think about my great grandkids. You think about these great entrepreneurs and philosophers of their time. Think about my great grandkids going, my great grandfather was the guy that invented Happiness Co, and Happiness Co made the world better. So I think it's always nice for the entrepreneurs listening right now to give themselves a kind of fairy tale story too. And if you're brave enough to go after your fairy tales, then quite often you can make them come true.
Beautiful. I've had quite a few very successful entrepreneurs on this show, and I've been asking some of the same questions to all of them, because part of this for me is just a bit of fun. It's a bit of research. It's a bit of conversation that's being opened up. And I've just started to notice patterns in what makes people successful, and everything that you've said today. By the way, I've asked every person on the show if they have mentors, and every single one of these people have said yes. So I'm starting to see, okay, well, if you want to be successful, it sounds like you got to get yourself a mentor. It sounds like you got to have a healthy mindset. It sounds like you have to, look after your physical, space, your environment, the people that are around you, your health, like what you eat. I've had a few interesting conversations with other people about that sort of thing as well. What else do you think, is one of the keys to success in entrepreneurship?
I think that your ability to manage what I said before about highlights reel versus blooper reel. Mm-hmm. It is, think about your mind being a garden and what you feed it. And how you prepare yourself for the moments that matter. And when I say the moments that matter, I mean the ones that matter. Life is always going to have problems, but how you work on the person that you need to be. So the key is this, which is ultimately the question. The more resourceful you become, the more powerful you become. And when I say powerful, I mean empowered. Mm-hmm. So you think about people saying this: I don't have enough time. How many people put their hands up? I don't have enough money. I don't have enough support. I don't have enough, I'm not smart enough. I'm dumb. I'm not pretty enough. Whatever people come up to with a lack of it's a lack of a resource. I think, well, who do you have to become then? So one of the questions I always ask myself as an entrepreneur that's become quite successful is, well, who do I have to become to get that next thing? Or who do I have to become to obtain happiness? Because funny thing about people is they believe achievement means that you always achieve it, right? Which is, I've got this, then it means that I'm going to have it forever. Well, conditioning and maintenance are two very different things, right? Again, you could think about when two people get together, they build their relationship based on love, respect, honesty, right? Authenticity. And then if you only built your relationship based on that at the start and then you didn't maintain it across the years, your relationship will fall apart. So one of the biggest things I would say to entrepreneurs watching as a tip for success is how you maintain it. How you maintain the same level of discipline that you had when you started. How you make it more compelling. And just having a zero excuse policy in my mind, which is, I was away, you asked me before, I was on tour for 10 days, different time zones. I go to New Zealand next week. But I always get up at the same time in the morning, regardless of where I am. That seems like a simple thing, right? But the simple things lead to the big things. Mm-hmm. So having a really powerful routine, and I'm sure all the people that you've had on this show talk about routines and rituals, like make them the foundations of every day of your life. And, talk about foundations as a whole. Every day, build the foundation. So what can I get out of this day? And if you wake up with that intention, imagine the people's lives that you can make better along the way, because you wake up and it's like Groundhog Day in a way, which is like I'm setting my routines and rituals that are so, so powerful for me as a person so I can serve this world.
What is your morning routine?
Yeah, so big one, and everyone should have a morning routine. And I'll ask yours in a second, but mine's getting out of bed in the first thing in the morning, having a glass of water. It's always next to my bed, straight down. And I refuse to snooze. Like I use the word rhyme, so it must make sense, right? Refuse to snooze. Just get out of bed, straight into a cold shower. I do this thing I call priming. It's like a breathing exercise with some visualization. And I get out the shower and I read 15 pages. And then I meditate and I do some journaling and some intentions for the day. This takes about an hour. Mm-hmm. So people are like, oh, Jules, an hour, that's a lot. Well, wake up an hour early or go to bed an hour late. People are so good at arguing for their limitations, if you think about it. Oh, Jules, I'm not a morning person. Well, become a morning person. Oh, Jules, I can't find 10 minutes. Find 10 minutes. Like, people can find whatever they truly want to find if they're willing to do the work. So that's my morning routine. Do you have a powerful one?
You know, my morning routine is quite simple. I get up in the morning, generally about the same time every day, unless I've had a late night. Like if I've been facilitating the night before, I'll let myself have a little bit of a sleep in. But yeah, get up in the morning and then, jump straight into the shower. The water, I have the water. I try and drink at least half a litre of water first thing in the morning, and then jump straight into the shower. And then I'll do either meditation or like some sort of exercise, depending on the day. I kind of alternate a little. And then I have my gratitude diary and my morning smoothie. So, because I do a bit of like intermittent fasting, so I won't eat anything until about like noon. So for me, having that smoothie in the morning, I'll then sit on the couch, I'll do my gratitude practice, journaling, meditation. That's about half an hour. And then the other half an hour is like just showering and getting ready. That's my hour first thing in the morning.
Yeah. And that ultimately comes down to what I said before, peak performance and personal performance, right? Mm-hmm. Like, think about health. Health is the epitome of success if you think about it, right? But it's not just physical health, it's emotional health and mindset. Like mental health, emotional health, and physical health. They're the three keys. People always think health and they think nutrition or working out. But how you maintain a happy life and a successful one is how you look after yourself. Mm. You think about people that pour so much love into other people's buckets but then do nothing for themselves. They neglect themselves and then they become empty. And how many people have you met along the way that are so good at making other people feel good about themselves, but they're so lonely? And it is so important that you manage your mental health, your emotional health, and your physical health. And these three factors determine so much of the things that we create in our life, because 80% of this game is psychology, right? Which is your decision making. Like if you can't make good decisions because you're foggy, you're blurry, you're caught up in resentment or anger, and so many people have emotions that don't serve them. And every single emotion has something to teach you, right? But anger is a fine emotion, but anger is a bad emotion if you use it and you punch someone in the head. Or anger is a bad emotion if you're yelling at people that didn't do anything to you. But anger clearly is trying to tell you something. Like, why am I feeling this way? So that's a really big part about, but when you're brave enough to know that you can manage your emotional health, your mental health, and your physical health, you truly do become quite powerful in your choices. And, clearly you've mastered that too.
Yeah, it's also, it's a work in progress, it's something that I feel like is always growing and developing. And there's so many different ways to, I guess, cultivate that in a day-to-day. I will say, personally, for me, the morning routine side of it was one of the most challenging things because I had all the excuses. And then I was also I've been that person who was giving to everyone else and completely burnt out because my audience knows the story, but I had a studio a couple of years ago and I was the person that was doing the 80-hour weeks and just giving nothing back to myself, making no money, like earning less than $2 an hour, to the point where I nearly did throw in the towel. I was like, oh my God, I should just go back and get like a full-time job and quit, and that was actually the point for me when I hired a business coach, because I knew that it wasn't working. And this is why I asked, I've been asking everyone on the show, have you had help? Because I personally feel like it's almost impossible to be successful without it, because you just don't get taught in school. Like I've done a master's, I've done a bachelor's of engineering, I'm highly educated, I've done like a thesis, I've done the whole shebang. I got flown to, the East Coast from my university to go present at a conference, and the whole academic, like everything, but nobody taught me how to live my life. So, yeah, I mean, learning those other things, like, getting the discipline of a morning routine, incorporating a daily meditation practice, that's taken me years to get, years to actually bring in all these things into my life that are actually good for me, and to then realize that it's actually not worth me sacrificing my health and wellness just to help somebody else.
Yeah, and burnout's such a big thing that you think about burnout amongst entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people always ask me, especially when I do entrepreneur workshops or work for entrepreneurs, like, how do you maintain the energy? I say, well, fuel's easy to maintain if you put the right things in, right? The right thoughts, the right food, looking after yourself. So people are like, well, how do you travel the world and jump on stage? Like, I started at, I think, 7 this morning at a workshop, and then I've got a first one tomorrow at 6:30. So I'll be up at 5:30, and I'll be getting myself staying. And I got a board meeting tomorrow night at 9. And again, the reason I share it is because I don't fear the day when it comes to times. You know how people are like, oh my God, I got the biggest day. Mm-hmm. I'm like, you know what? I know I'll get through it, because I know I fuel my life, my mind, my body, my soul with all the things, all the ingredients I'm going to need to be able to be a better man tomorrow. So I guess you have such faith in the process once you've built a good one.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know that I can overcome this day or this moment because you have such faith in the things and the work that you've done, right? So think about any great athlete. They back themselves in moments of, unbelievable pressure because they've done the work.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things I see entrepreneurs fail in the most, they may be very talented, but as you said, no one really taught you how to live your life. So character is way more important than talent. Character is the thing that defines you when your chips are down and people let you down and you're hurting and you're struggling and you're frustrated, and you still show up and you're still kind and you're still brave and you're still bold and you're still giving and you're still selfless even when you have no reason to be. That truly defines your character, because it's easy to win when things are going well for you as an entrepreneur, right? When people are buying your products and people are just, you're winning. But that's not where winning happens. Winning happens when you're losing. Mm-hmm. Like, you learn more about your character when you're losing than when you're winning, but everyone wants to win. And you only learn how to win because you lose, and no one wants to get the losses on the board. And I just say that, you've had your losses, and that's why you're always learning, but you've had your losses. I've had my losses, and I will have more losses, but I don't fear them. And there's a great saying by Ronda Rousey, right? You know the UFC fighter, Ronda Rousey?
I actually don't, but sure.
She was like a champion UFC fighter. She was a female. She was the world champ, and she had never lost, and she got knocked out in this fight, her first time ever. And when she got knocked out, she was on the floor, in her mind, right, saying to herself, I'm going to kill myself, because she was saying to herself, if I'm not a champion, then who am I? But then she realized that she wanted to become a mum, and like all these other stories started kind of flooding into her mind. And the reason I shared this, she said something really powerful. She goes, I may be beat, but I'm never defeated, because defeated is a mindset. I may be beat, but I'm never defeated, because defeated is a mindset. You're going to get beat. You're going to lose some rounds in life, guys, and that's life. And I'm going to lose some too, but you're never defeated, because defeat is what you choose to make it. And I just think that's a great message for us all.
That's beautiful. That's amazing. Julian, it has been such a pleasure having you on today's show. I think you've just dropped like wisdom bomb after wisdom bomb. I feel like, we could like pull out all these Instagram quotes from everything that you've said today. It's been amazing. It really has. I've learned a lot, and it's also so beautiful to see you being so vulnerable and openly sharing. So thank you for, sharing these aspects of yourself with us, because, these people that are watching this, the rising entrepreneurs who are getting ready to get out into the world and share their message and grow bigger and do better things, I think they have a lot to learn from yourself, because you're somebody who's done it. You've been there, you've fallen, and then you've gotten up and you've just kept rising, and it's just amazing. So I'm so grateful for you just, giving your time here and being here with us today.
Thank you for having me. And as I said to you before the webinar, that I think that if you have the ability to make someone else's life a little better, you should always take it. And these opportunities for me to share my message with people listening, and I used to remind them that they're enough. And I guess my probably parting message would be that to always remember to give yourself permission. Permission to try, permission to be brave, permission to be bold. And probably the biggest thing that I would like to share with people, that you can still be brokenhearted and be brave. And what I mean by that, there are still parts of my life and who I am as a man that are still brokenhearted. And I say parts of my life, right? There are still parts of me that wish I could go back and change what happened. And there's still parts of my life that bring me incredible sadness. But it doesn't mean I can't be brave. It doesn't mean I can't be successful. It doesn't mean I can't be a good man, a good dad, a good husband, a good person. So whatever you are going through right now and you are listening to this, whatever struggle or hardship you may be facing, remember, you can still be the person that you want to be tomorrow.
I love that. Julian, for these amazing viewers that have been following us tonight, where can they find you and follow you online?
So the usual platforms, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, happinesscode.org if you want to check out the amazing things that the Happiness Code does and our coaching programs. And if you want to check out what I'm up to, just obviously Julian Pace on the socials. And I was laughing today because someone was telling me about TikTok. I've heard about TikTok enough times. I think I'm on TikTok for some crazy thing. I think I got 1 follower. So if you're on TikTok, feel free to give me a follow.
Love it. Thanks so much, Julian. It's been absolutely amazing. Total pleasure. And I look forward to speaking with you again soon.
Thank you so very much. Good night.
Bye.